It's time we talk post-match and learn every word that Maresca had to say on why we drew the game, his lack of subs, Acheampong's debut, and Nico's misses. But on top of that, my friends, we have more updates in this January window, and I'll be discussing areas in the squad I feel that we have to improve upon before this month ends. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hit that like button as well for the start of the new year, and let's get straight into things. Let's start things off by discussing an interesting report that came out from Recruitment. They report that we may be tempted to go back into the market this month to sign a centre-back. As we all know, Wesley Fofana is set to miss the entirety of this season with injury. Chelle won't come back till February, and it seems that the club could be tempted into looking at reinforcements. Now, recently we've seen options circulate around the market, most notably for Kyle Tomori, but realistically, my friends, I have to burst this bubble. He's staying at AC Milan. The new AC Milan manager, formerly of FC Porto and Constantine, is a big fan of him, so that move won't be happening. But interestingly, we did learn that we considered recalling Trevor Chalobah from his loan spell at Crystal Palace. However, the reason why that won't be happening is that we never exercised any recall clause in that original deal. But post-match after this game today, the Crystal Palace manager in Glasner came out to reveal a pretty different story. Now, you're reading his extracts on screen right now, but he seems to be of the belief that with the amount of options we have already, there is no place for Chalobah to come back. He doesn't actually say that there is no possibility because there isn't any recall clause. So that's a pretty interesting revelation. You know, as you know, sometimes the football clubs, when they source news to the media, they do kind of put out narratives that they want, not necessarily, telling the truth. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm sure you guys, this isn't news to you guys already. But there has been a lot of contradicting information coming out around Chalobah and him coming back here. But you know what? Listening to these stories, seeing these reports, I think realistically, if we were to strengthen in this window, I don't think we have to do that at centre-back. I mean, we recently recalled Enzo from his spell at Boca Juniors. Yeah, there's a possibility now that there's a option open now for us to send out loan players internationally, that he could find himself at Strasbourg. We know that was like the long-term play since before we signed him. But there's a possibility now, a very realistic one, that he remains here, trains under Maresca, and we may even see him next week against Morecambe. Let's see what happens. But I think we can't forget the reality that Chelle returns back next month. We have Cornwall, we have Disasi, we have Tosin. We've seen Acheampong have an incredible debut today against Crystal Palace, and Sabina might get opportunities. And on top of that, we've seen that Maresca will use fullbacks as wide centre-backs. You've got Cucurella, you've got Vega, you've got Reece James, and you've got Malo Gusto. I really feel like if you're forcing a centre-back signing this month, you're doing the absolute most. You're panicking, you're not thinking, and I just don't see this being a key area that needs any type of enforcement, even if we do end up selling a centre-back this window. With Fofana and let's say Disasi out, I think we're still good defensively, and honestly, I don't think defending is the main issue for us that is stopping us getting to where we want to be. So there's some of my thoughts and opinions. That's the news. Do you guys think we should dip into the market, or do you feel like we already have enough defensive enforcement at the back already? My friends, we now discuss and unpack a big post-match press conference, as this is now the fourth game in a row now that we have not picked up a win. The second game in a row now, we've cost ourselves and let our lead slip. Listen, I think there were positives in this game today, but that's enough for me. Let's learn what Maresca had to say after today's draw against Palace. Maresca was asked, what does this result say about the team right now? Maresca said that we did enough to win this game between the first half and the second half. We created enough chances to win. We need to be more clinical. Otherwise, the game remains open. You give more possibilities to the opposition and you encourage them. But in the end, we concede. But enough was done to win this game. Now, I agree that enough was done because Maresca set this team up very well. I thought the 4-1-4-1, the back four surprised all of us. No one envisioned any, wide fullbacks. We all thought we'd see inverted fullbacks, and that caused Palace many issues. And there was enough issues created for Palace that we could have won that game if we were more clinical, and the lack of clinical ability in this game was quite poor. The fact that Henderson was not forced into one save against us, that tells you that our finishing was off target. We had 15 shots and the keeper didn't make any save against us. That's pretty poor. But still, we didn't get the result due to those crucial details, not finishing, not controlling the outcome good enough. And it makes you think, do we address these issues yet again in the market, or is it simply a case of allowing this young, talented team, which is the youngest squad in the Premier League, the time and growth to develop and grow? I mean, I'll give a quick example. When I saw Frank Lampard as a kid growing up, for the first 3 years, I didn't think he was going to be like that elite guy. After his 4th year, he became the Frank Lampard we all knew him for. A lot of these guys are like halfway there right now. Is that just part of the game? Naturally, Maresca was asked 4 games since we've last won a game, and he said that, listen, 2-3 weeks ago, we all spoke about a title race, but I've said consistently we are not in a title race. For me, it's always been about how we improve. We knew that Villa, Newcastle and City would come back in the league and provide competition. The performance we saw today was good on and off the ball. I knew that difficulties would come this time of the season because they come for many reasons, right? But if I had to decide the reason that we had difficulties today, I would say we weren't clinical. And I think that is a pretty fair analysis of this game, because most people aren't complaining about the performance we put in today. They're complaining about us not taking our chances, right? That's where the conversation is currently centered at. Moving on, why are we seeing a reluctance from Enzo Maresca turning towards his bench? That was asked him today, and Maresca kind of redirected that question back to the journalist by asking him, who should have been subbed on? The journalist responds with Joao Felix and Nkunku, can they not be looked at? And Maresca said he doesn't know, kind of laughs it off, but then he goes on to say that, listen, in this job, when he makes changes, he does it because something is not working on the field or is not good enough. I think that insight was pretty interesting. Maresca basically said that he saw all 11 players pressing well off the ball, so there was no need to really force anything in that capacity. And I agree with that, because I thought we were really up for that fight against Crystal Palace today, and we won quite a few of our second balls in particular moments. He went on to say that guys like Sancho, Neto, Palmer, Enzo, the whole team were good off the ball, so there was no need to really force anything in those moments. Isn't this interesting answer? Personally, I felt like both teams today played like a 7 out of 10 game each. It was like a good level, good competition, but equally at the same time, if you're seeing players getting fatigued now, do you not turn towards your bench? Cole Palmer, another conversation around the fact that, can he be subbed off sometimes? If he just had maybe a fresh mind, fresh bodies, and either Nkunku or Felix who came on to replace him, do things become avoidable? Who knows? It's just a conversation I'm having. But let's end things with the final 2 key points from the post-match presser. And we talk Josh Acheampong's debut, because Maresca had big words for him. Maresca said, all the players for me were good today, but if I had to decide for one, I think for sure Josh was our best player because of his age. It was his first game. Josh, for me, can be a top player for this club, but he needs the right path, the right moment. For young players, you need to decide which moment. We decided today because we think he showed he was ready. Today, I think he showed how good he is. Because of his age, he needs to slow down, work hard, and take his next chance. Big praise from Maresca. I think that's very fair. I think Josh today really did himself great justice, rose to the challenge, played his game, showed his confidence, was ready to fight against Mateta, regularly carried us up the field, and yeah, you can see why in the end we had to be a little bit dirty to get this guy to sign his long-term future here. But you can see why all the other big clubs across Europe have been looking at him, right? Does this mean that we don't have to think about centre-backs in this window? I like to think so, because I don't think we have to waste money in an area that just isn't needed right now. And for the final question in the press conference, we have to end things on our lack of finishing right now. When asked, how do we improve our finishing ability, Maresca said the key thing that he focuses on himself is the ability to create the chances. As he says, there's certain games where you score 1 goal from 1 chance, and there's other games where you score 1 goal from 10 chances. He then goes on to say, what can be done? Do I add more intensity to the game? And I think the answer was no. He does admit though that this is an area that we need to see improvement in. As he said, Nico had 2-3 clear-cut chances. The fact is though, the positive, he's in those areas at least. That shows his promise. So let's hope in his next game he can score and convert. And I think that's fair. Listen, I understand the frustration. I'm always frustrated when chances don't go in, but I'm sorry, like, I've got perspective, and that perspective forever remains. How many strikers are there that exist at the highest level, at the same age as Nico Jackson, that you can say, bet all your money on, would convert those opportunities or show that consistency on goal? They don't exist like that. Like, they really do not exist like that. I think people just don't watch enough football outside the club they support to not actually realize that, you know, the market doesn't have these options there that you think they do, unless you're spending big money on guarantee guys. That's the difference. And the question is, with all the money that we've spent on promise for the future, is it simply a case now of waiting for them to grow and develop? Now, for myself, I think Nico has shown improvements, but there's a lot more to come from him. The question is, can he get there? I think if he can really go to another level now, he has to show more variety in his finishing technique. I think right now, Nico's best at finishing off team moves, and he's quite decent at creating chances for himself. But in terms of the half chances, or efforts outside the box, or curlers, or like top consistency with his heading, etc, etc, you know, he's not really mastered those aspects of his game. I can't imagine him mastering everything, but I think he can add more variety with his finishing, especially with his left foot, because he's forced that left channel quite a lot, and I think we have to see, hopefully, bigger improvements with his finishing with that left foot. So my friends, that is the post-match talk out the way. Share your thoughts and opinions. And right now, I want to end things by discussing what to do in this January window. It was two things. One, if Lavia was a possibility off the bench, I think that we have enough in this game to seal out this result with him and Caicedo marshalling that defense. On the other hand too, I noticed Nicholas Jackson running out of steam a lot more these days, and I do feel like another striker could be helpful for this team right now, because securing Champions League football is a priority. No matter what you read in press reports, what Maresca says or whatever, if we miss out on CL again, it's going to be very long. So it goes back to my last news video about positions that Maresca would like to reinforce this month, and they are another midfielder and a striker. But who could those options be? One strong option is the potential recalling of Andre Santos from his loan spell at Strasbourg. I mean, I simply see it like this. God forbid if anything happened to Moises or Enzo, that could heavily derail last season. And it seems that Maresca prefers the balance a midfielder can provide coming on compared to turning towards offensive players that can't really press off the ball. So there's a big possibility that Andre Santos could be recalled, but the risk is this could really affect Strasbourg. We're only hovering above the relegation positions. If we can somehow sign someone for Strasbourg to replace him with, that could help us. But let's watch this space. But something could be happening around Andre Santos, as I feel like his profile could be important for us. And naturally, of course, a striker is needed. I think is, you know, he's got promise, but I personally don't think he's ready just yet to be a number 2. I think a loan spell for a whole season in La Liga, that works for him. But in the meantime, there's interesting options on the market, and I think realistically for myself, a loan is the best source. Now, talks around osimhen. I know that a lot of people are hoping that Victor could maybe be signed this month. I want to give you guys some information, give you guys some context, but right now, reports seem to suggest that Victor is interested in a move to Manchester United. If that did materialize, of course, Galatasaray are owed a €10 million compensation fee, which was agreed in the initial loan from Napoli, obviously to Galatasaray. And when that move happened, rumors suggested that the release clause in Victor's contract did change, and the figure is between 75 million to 90 million euros, and that's around like 62 million pounds to 75 million pounds. Now, is there a possibility we can get Victor? The only way I see it happening is if we decide to pay his full release clause, because we can't forget the reason why the deal never materialized near the end of the summer, and that's because Victor rejected our wage packet we offered. We were no way near the money he wanted, hence why he never came to us in the end. So I don't see that happening. For myself, I think the loan market will provide us something. And the two realistic options are Evan Ferguson. But my fear is, okay, he's quite young. He's not been playing as consistently. Yes, injuries never helps. He's shown his form in flashes, but again, can I be relying on him to help us push for a CL spot? I don't know. I think if there's one option that is interesting, it does remain Kolo Muani. I think obviously everything now is pushing towards him leaving Paris Saint-Germain this window. I think you can get him for a very affordable fee. His wages will be dramatically reduced as well too. And I do think that realistically he could offer us the outlet up front that we need when Nico isn't there. And potentially competition, because Kolo Muani will be thinking about the World Cup approaching. And he'll be thinking to himself, if he performs, could he possibly force a move to us? This type of loan deal even materializes. So my friends, what I'm here to say is that a midfielder and striker are key in this market, but it doesn't involve us having to splash ridiculous money when we have a lot of possibilities out here already. If anything, I think smart strategy now is key, because for myself, it's a lot more realistic for us to win points by maintaining our leads compared to us becoming one of the world-class finishing teams in the world. I think there's more points we gain from how we control games and see things out compared to how many goals we can score to safeguard our leads. I think that's where the thinking has to be right now. And I think to get there, having a midfield player that you can turn to off the bench, that is going to help rotate what we have already, plus give more fresh legs and keep the tactical intensity up in the team. And having a striker that is good enough to compete with Nico, and of course this gives us more possibilities and rotational support. So my friends, that is everything post-match news and opinions right now. Hope you guys enjoy. Share your thoughts and opinions, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow with some more videos. Cool.